Who was cut off in Daniel 9:26? Book number 8 of the False Fulfillment Citation series, available at www.amazon.com. The silence of the New Testament screams interpolation. Daniel 9:26 is not quoted in the New Testament. So why do the Christians like Daniel 9:26 so much? The word anointed, which translates to Messiah, is in Daniel 9:26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be slain, and shall have nothing, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with the flood, and unto the end of the battle it shall be destroyed by desolations. Where is Daniel quoted in the New Testament? Matthew 24:15. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Where does this quote come from? Daniel 11:31. And forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Then they shall take away the daily sacrifices, and place there the abomination of desolation. Daniel 12:11. And from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away, and the abomination of desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days. So we see Jesus quoting Daniel, but not Daniel 9:26. The word Messiah is only in Daniel 9:25 and 26. There is a cover-up to be aware of. The word anointed is only translated as Messiah in Daniel 9:25 through 26, and there is a reason. Go to www.biblegateway.com and type in the word Messiah and see yourself. The reason for this is they want to point to Jesus as this Messiah. So if they were to put Messiah everywhere else the word anointed appears, it would throw you off because you would only be thinking of Jesus as a Messiah as he's portrayed in the New Testament. They really don't tell you about all the other Messiahs in the Tanakh. Mashiach, Strong's 4899. 1 Samuel 16:13. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. We see the word anointed there in the Strong's 4886 as well. Now, what does this mean? Anoint. Paint, a primitive root, to rub with oil, to anoint by application, to consecrate, also to paint, anoint, paint. 4899. Anointed. Messiah from Meshach. Anointed, usually a consecrated person as a king, priest, or saint, specifically the Messiah, anointed Messiah. So we see in 1 Samuel 16:13, David was anointed to be a Messiah, but it doesn't say that. It just says anointed him. So why didn't it say he was made a Messiah here? 4899. Mashiach. NAS Exhaustive Concordance. Word origin from Meshach. Definition, anointed. NASB translation, anointed once, anointed 34 times, anointed once twice, Messiah twice, which means all these other times this word anointed is used, the word Messiah could appear, but it doesn't, for a reason. They only want to point to Jesus as a Messiah and not let you know that other people were also Messiahs. Strong's Hebrew 4899. Mashiach. 39 occurrences in the Tanakh. Out of 39 occurrences in the Tanakh, why only twice do we see the word Messiah and only anointed throughout the Tanakh except Daniel 9:25 through 26? Leviticus 4:3. If the anointed priest sins, if Ha-Mashiach sins, if the Messiah sins. Exodus 28:41. And thou shalt put them upon Aaron thy brother, and his sons with him, and thou shalt anoint them, and consecrate them, and sanctify them, that they may minister unto me in the priest's office. Again, the word anoint is there. And not only Aaron, but his sons were all made messiahs at the same time. Englishman's Concordance, Messiah, 3 occurrences. Concordance entries, Strong's Hebrew, 4899, 39 occurrences. Out of those 39 occurrences, like I've been saying, why only 2 times do you find the word Messiah instead of the word anointed? The Lord's anointed, 1 Samuel 24:6. And he said unto his men, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master. The Lord's anointed, to stretch forth mine hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. Again, we see the word 4899, Mashiach, Psalm 18:50. Loving kindness to his anointed, to David. Why doesn't it say Messiah in these verses? Why doesn't it say the Lord's Messiah? Christos, 55:47 in the Strong's. Definition, the anointed one, Messiah, Christ. John 1:41. He findeth first his own brother Simon, and said unto him, we have found the Messiah, which is being interpreted Christ. 33:23. Messias. Definition, Messiah, the Old Testament title corresponding to Christ. Usage, Messiah, the anointed one. John 4:25. The woman said unto him, I know that Messiah cometh, he that is called Christ. When he is come, he will declare unto us all things. So we see the same word, anointed, which corresponds to Christ and Messiah, heavily used in the New Testament. But the word Christ and Messiah is also always translated as such. Very rarely do you even see the word anointed. So why in the Tanakh do we not see this word Messiah thrown around as it is in the New Testament? Because there is an agenda to hide the Messiah and only point to one Messiah, which is actually very deceitful. To not let you know that there were multiple Messiahs in the Tanakh is very deceitful. Has a Messiah been cut off before? 1 Kings 14:14. Moreover, the Lord shall raise him up a king over Israel, who shall cut off the house of Jeroboam that day. But what? Even now. Hosea 10:15. So shall Bethel do unto you because of your great wickedness. In a morning shall the king of Israel utterly be cut off. Daniel 9:27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he shall call the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. Joel 1:9. The meat offering and the drink offering is cut off from the house of the Lord. The priests, the Lord's ministers, mourn. Now, if we look at 1 Kings 14:14, we see that Jeroboam was a king of Israel at one point in time, and he was cut off. Not sacrificed, but cut off. A punishment. Hosea 10:15. In a morning shall the king of Israel be cut off. Again, another punishment, not a sacrifice. In Daniel 9:27, it says, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. This will mean that the priest's livelihood would be cut off. And to prove what I'm talking about, Joel 1:9, the meat offering and the drink offering is cut off from the house of the Lord. This is exactly something that Daniel 9:27 describes. Not the same situation or time frame, but the same application of the meat offering and the drink offering being cut off. And you notice in Joel 1:9, it says the priests, the Lord's ministers, mourn because that is their livelihood. So we're going to see who was cut off, and if a priest was cut off in the New Testament times, which would be actually very significant if it was a priest from the Levites that was cut off in Daniel 9:26 and not Jesus. Cut off does not always mean death. 2 Chronicles 26:21. And Uzziah the king was a leper until the day of his death, and dwelt in a several house, being a leper, for he was cut off from the house of the Lord. And Jotham his son was over the king's house, judging the people of the land. 1 Kings 9:7. Then I will cut off Israel from the land. So we see the king being cut off, but he actually didn't die at that point in time. And we see Israel being cut off from the land, meaning they will go into exile. Not necessarily everyone will die. And none of these situations doesn't mean anyone was sacrificed. The word cut off does not signify a sacrifice. Cut off does not mean sacrificed. It is a punishment, not a form of appeasement. Zechariah 13:2. And in that day, said the Lord of hosts, I will cut off the names of the idols out of the land, and they shall no more be remembered. And I will cause the prophets and the unclean spirit to depart out of the land. Leviticus 20:3. And I will set my face against that man and cut him off from among his people, because he hath given his children unto Molech, for to defile my sanctuary and to pollute mine holy name. So we see cut off as being a punishment to cut people out of the land. We don't see anything or any reference to a sacrifice at all. But not for himself. This is the verse the missionaries hold very dear. Daniel 9:26. The phrase, but not for himself. But let's examine this. 369 in the Hebrew. But not. Strong's Concordance definition, nothing, not. But there will be nothing for himself is how it should read. New American Standard Bible, Deuteronomy 28:32. Your sons and daughters will be given to another people, while your eyes look on and long for them continually, but there will be nothing you can do. So in context, when we read Daniel 9:26, this is not talking about somebody dying for the sins of another. This is talking about somebody who will be cut off and will simply have nothing for himself. Have nothing. We see other translations have rendered this verse the same way. New International Version. After the 62 sevens, the anointed one will be put to death and will have nothing. Notice how they didn't use the word Messiah there. New Living Translation. After this period of 62 sets of 7, the anointed one will be killed, appearing to have accomplished nothing. Why doesn't it say not for himself here? If we continue with have nothing, Proverbs 20:4, the sluggard will not plow by reason of the cold, therefore he shall beg in harvest and have nothing. This is how Daniel 9:26 should be rendered. He will be cut off and have nothing. For himself. No definition is given for this word in the Strong's. Lamed and Vav put together like this can mean him, so we can read this like there will be nothing for him or himself. Again, other translations render this as but there will be nothing for him or himself. Not that he was killed not for himself, rather he lost everything, so he shall have nothing for himself when he was killed, because I've shown earlier as an example in Joel 1:9, when the meat offering and the drink offering are cut off and those priests are cut off, they will have nothing for themselves. How many messiahs are in the New Testament? Exodus 30:7. And Aaron shall burn thereon sweet incense every morning. When he dresseth the lamps, he shall burn incense upon it. I bring this up for this reason. Aaron was the high priest, and he burned the incense. Luke 1:5. There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias of the course of Abiah, and his wife was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. Luke 1:9. According to the custom of the priest's office, his lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. So we see that Zacharias was a priest doing what Aaron did. Now we saw earlier, Aaron was anointed or made a Messiah. Would this make Zacharias a Messiah? And do we know if he was ever cut off? Luke 3:2. Annas and Caiaphas being the high priests, the word of God came unto John, the son of Zacharias, in the wilderness. Again, we see Annas, Caiaphas being high priests. High priests are messiahs, or they are anointed. We know John, the son of Zacharias, would have also been in the priest's office, and he also would have been anointed. Now, I know that some hold Annas and Caiaphas were not Israelites. If that being the case, it still leaves John as a high priest, if he's under the same order of Zacharias, in the office of burning the incense as Aaron, the Messiah. How many messiahs were cut off in the time of the Roman occupation of Israel? Mark 6:27. And immediately the king sent an executioner and commanded his head to be brought. And he went and beheaded him in the prison. This is speaking about John the Baptist, one of the descendants of a Messiah. When did Annas and Caiaphas die? If they were legitimate high priests, they would also be messiahs. Who was the high priest when the temple was destroyed? Mattathias ben Theophilus of 60 CE was the Jewish high priest, or Kohen Gadol, at the start of the Jewish Revolution and was overthrown by revolutionary forces. He was in office in 65 CE when the war against the Romans broke out. Josephus records, during the troubles in Jerusalem, which preceded the siege by Titus, he was deposed, since he, like the other aristocrats, belonged to the peace party. One of his sons, having even sought refuge with the Romans, Matthias was put to death as a dangerous character by the very Simon ben Gioras, whom he had invited to Jerusalem to subdue the revolutionists. So we see in the time of Jesus, the word Messiah would have been popular and not exclusive to Jesus, and he would have not been the only one cut off if it was talking about him in Daniel 9:26. Let us review. The Christian translators deliberately hid the word Messiah and used the word anointed, except in Daniel 9:25 and 26. Cut off does not always mean death. There were many messiahs in the New Testament. The high priests were messiahs that were cut off and had nothing when the temple was destroyed, because that was their source of income. Context: Daniel 9:26, American Standard Version. And after the 62 weeks shall the anointed one be cut off, and shall have nothing, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Now, the anointed one be cut off, and shall have nothing. So the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing. Where does it say he will be sacrificed for anyone? It doesn't. And we know the anointed one will be cut off and shall have nothing, because this is referring to the priests. Human sacrifice is an abomination. Isaiah 66:3. But those who choose their own ways, delighting in their detestable sins, will not have their offerings accepted. When such people sacrifice a bull, it is no more acceptable than a human sacrifice. Hosea 13:2. They keep on sinning more and more. They make idols from silver for themselves. These idols are skillfully made. All of them are the work of craftsmen. People say this about the Israelites. They offer human sacrifices and kiss calf-shaped idols. So Daniel 9:25-26 could not have been talking about a human sacrifice, because it is an abomination. If human sacrifices are an abomination, Why try to justify Daniel 9 and 26 as a human sacrifice? Deuteronomy 12, 29 through 32 explains to us why we shouldn't do such a thing. The Lord your God will destroy the nations where you're going and force them out of your way. You will take possession of their land and live there. After they've been destroyed, be careful you aren't tempted to follow their customs. Don't even ask about their gods and say, how did these people worship their gods? We want to do what they did. Never worship the Lord your God in the way they worship their gods, because everything they do for their gods is disgusting to the Lord. He hates it. They even burn their sons and daughters as sacrifices to their gods. Be sure to do everything I command you. Never add anything to it or take anything away from it. We see clearly human sacrifice is disgusting, and don't worship the Lord your God in that way. The next time someone says to you, let's read the New Covenant, make sure you go to Jeremiah 31:30 before going to Jeremiah 31 and 31. But everyone shall die for his own iniquity. Every man that eateth the sour grape, his teeth shall be set on edge. Hosea 6 and 6. For I desired mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. Jesus quotes this in Matthew 9 and 13. Now, why would he quote Hosea 6 and 6 if the desire was mercy and not sacrifice? This will go against everything taught in the New Testament about Jesus being a sacrifice, including Daniel 9 and 26, Psalm 51 and 17. The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart, O God, thou wilt not despise. Psalm 34 and 18. The Lord is nigh, or near unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. So we see we can have salvation from a broken heart or sincere repentance and no need of Jesus to come to the Father. There is much more to say on Daniel 9, 24 through 27. I go into much more detail in my book. Please do not think I am avoiding major controversies. So for the sake of time, I kept this PowerPoint as short as possible and to the point. Who was cut off in Daniel 9 and 26? The point has been made about the smoke and mirrors concerning the translation of the word Messiah. Nothing stated about anyone dying for anyone's sins. And finally, human sacrifice is an abomination. The False Fulfillment Citation Series, available at Amazon.com, is a 10-book series dedicated to the false fulfillment citations used by the missionaries. Subscribe to Davon Mays on YouTube. Thanks for listening.